be a source for information, be the expert in your area. And when people have questions, they'll reach out.
Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. Today I'm going to be here with Michael Honn from STEK. Super excited to have him back on the show. If you haven't listened to his first episode, go back and listen to that. Some really good stuff. So we're going to try to cover new stuff. SEMA's coming up next week, so we'll talk about that as well. Before I forget, go to detailersroadmap.com. Use that little demo button at the top. We build kick-ass websites and do great SEO and some other things in there in between. So use that demo button, get in with the team, and we can walk you through what you've got going on now and how we can help. Hey, I'm going to read Michael's bio here, which may be a little different than the one last time. And it's I'm going to read it. You said trim it up, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to read it because I think there's some cool stuff in here. Michael began his career in the detailing industry before joining STEK USA as their first full-time sales rep right out of college. Over 5 years, he excelled as sales director, driving significant growth and success for the company. He then transitioned to lead the marketing team, aligning with his university major and deepening his expertise. Leveraging his background in customer service and account management, along with his passion for marketing and automotive innovation, Michael has played a pivotal role in defining and expanding the STEK USA brand. His efforts have enhanced engagement and experience for both installers and customers. I want to talk more about that. This is what I love. Outside of work, Michael has nurtured a lifelong passion for automotive pursuits, particularly in rally driving, which he has actively competed in for the last 8 years at the amateur and professional levels with the American Rally Association Championship. He also enjoys playing music and exploring the great outdoors. I think we'd get along great if we lived closer. I love this kind of stuff as well. So before we start, I want to hear more about the rally racing.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I want to talk about that too. And I want to get that superhero backstory. Like I said before we started, I don't presume that people have listened to this before or your episode before. So I want to get that superhero backstory that we tell. And I want, as part of that, can you tell more about the rally stuff? That's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of us to work hard, we have goals and we're goal oriented. We try to, pursue and develop our professional life so that we can achieve what we want in our personal lives. Sometimes they intervene goals, sometimes they don't. I've been fairly diligent in kind of separating the two, and I'll talk about a little bit of that crossover we have here later in the episode. But yeah, rally driving is something here in the Pacific Northwest that just kind of naturally called my name. We have beautiful logging roads. We have, if you go further east, a lot of farm roads, a lot of gravel, dirt type terrain. And for those unfamiliar, stage rally is essentially a time attack. It's a distance race. Typically, stages are broken into 10 to 20 miles of length, and you go through about 10 to 20 of those in a weekend. So you'll be driving maybe 150 miles of competition stages, and the goal is for you and your buddy, who's what I call the crazy seat sitting next to you, he's a co-driver, he's telling you relatively what's coming up. There's a whole note system that you guys make a couple days before you go out and actually race. But you go through those stages as fast as you can. So you're off-roading. Usually a lot of Subarus are the popular platform, but there's rear-wheel drive BMWs, Volvos, there's some front-wheel drive cars, and even more recently there's been some like R2 series cars, which we see racing in rally in Europe. So the Pacific Northwest is a super healthy scene for stage rally in America. It kind of has had ebbs and flows. It's really big in the 80s, the 90s, Group B, Group A era. And then it's kind of dwindled down and slowly picking back up. So it's something that we do just for glory, for the fun of it. There's not really much more than a pat on the back and a little trophy to go home with if you do well. But the risk and reward is definitely really high. Just that feeling of accomplishment and getting to go out there and really become one with the car is what keeps me coming back. And it's a race against yourself as much as it is that competition, but there's no door to door. So it's really, if you make a mistake, that's on you. You can't blame someone for, cutting you off, taking your line, like in a lot of other kinds of racing.
Yeah. And if you've never watched rally racing, those guys are freaking insane. Let me just say, and like you said, the crazy seat, right? Like these guys are, I don't think there's another sport in automotive or otherwise, actually very few endeavors that you would do where you have to place so much trust into the person that's controlling your life. Essentially, like if he says, hard left, whatever those signals are, right? Hard left, hard right, 45 right, whatever, however you guys are doing that, like you're at speed. How fast are you going? 80 plus?
Yeah, it depends on the car, of course, but yeah, I mean, the speed factor average for the faster guys is usually 60 to 90 miles per hour. So your average speed on that stage is between 60 and 90, and that's at the higher level. Some guys' speed factors are 105 too if you're driving for like Subaru, for example.
Jeez.
So,
and you're on gravel and slidey and all that stuff. I think that's super cool. I love the team aspect of it and the trust aspect of it. I'm doing a little talk next week at SEMA, and it's a lot about identity and network and those circles of friends and those kind of things. And trust is such an integral part of that. And I don't think, again, I think that's an awesome thing. So we can talk about how you integrate that into the rest of your professional career. But talk to me about this backstory. Like, this is pretty rare today, right? To where you got a job right out of college, stuck with it, and you're still within the same company. How long have you been with STEK then?
it'll be 7 years come this January.
Okay. So you've basically built your career around one company, but then you've changed to better suit probably more of what you enjoy than what you were still good at, the sales and sales director, but what you're good at, right? So go ahead and give us that story. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool and fairly unique. But I actually lucked out for working for John and Benjamin, the owners of STEK USA. They have another detailing business, and before they ever had distribution for STEK or really had this cooking for them, I had worked at their detail business in between semesters at college. It was summer break, went home. I knew I really liked cars. What can I do in the car world instead of just work, some other food service job or something for the summer? So they needed essentially a wash bay attendant, if you will. But I spent all my summer outside washing their cars, prepping them, auto scrubbing a little bit, and preparing the cars for either paint protection film that they're installing through another brand at that time, or other just detail paint, correction and such that they've been known for their ceramic coatings and beyond. And so this company was, pretty well organized. They had a really good reputation already for just the quality of work, the craftsmanship that they're doing. And I saw how much time that John and Benjamin were spending day to day at the detail shop. But they had hired a trustworthy, very talented staff, trained them up. And I felt like they had the opportunity to give back to their families now a little bit, and not just in a monetary way, but also in a time way and a presence. So I ended up writing a little consulting report before I left because I was already going to school for business. And I was like, hey, here are a few things that you guys are doing really well. Here's a couple of things that I recommend you try implementing that might help you step away from the detail business a little bit and spend more time with your family, essentially. And they hadn't had too many employees. I went and just took that initiative to
Right.
give them kind of a business report, if you will. And so they were really impressed with that. And they said, yeah, when you're done with college, feel free to come talk to us, see what we're up to. There might be other opportunities for you. We maybe are working on something else. And so sure enough, I had about one more year in college. By the time I got out, I reached out to, multiple corporations, which were daunting and fairly boring in my opinion. I worked in automotive. And I really wasn't too familiar with the paint protection film space, but it turned out that they just got distribution rights for STEK probably about 6 months to a year before that. So shortly after I left, and really they're trying to grow momentum as I started. So there was an older gentleman who was part-time for him and helping with establishing some of those accounts, doing that account management. And then Howard Goldberg, who's still with STEK as well, is the general manager now. He was operations manager. And so he's in charge of inventory, shipping the film, processing the payment, all that kind of stuff. But they needed someone to be a little bit more aggressive with the sales side of things. So it sounded like a good opportunity. I hadn't worked in a startup environment before, but it was very much so back the detail business under some stairs on a folding table and with wood chairs. We started, with very humble beginnings, just a couple racks of film, if you will. And I just went out on the road, got really aggressive about it. Didn't ever think I would be a salesperson, but I learned very quickly with a lot of customer service and food service experience prior that it really was just customer service. We're not going to be, too aggressive about our approach. None of that kind of bad connotation of a used car sale guy or whatever, where you're pushing something that people don't want, but really just using education as a means to help motivate individuals to try out the brand, put some of that product in their hand, but also give them a chance to see us face to face. So we did a lot of shop visits. I'd be on the road for 2-3 weeks at a time, going through California, going through Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Florida, up to Georgia, and just kind of going all over the country to put a face to the brand that was new. And I thought, one, that was a really cool opportunity as a young guy. I had a lot of fun doing it, but it was also a really good way to show people that this company is legit. We're here, we have a presence, and we're wanting to make a difference. It helps that their detail shop that was now using STEK was also looked up to in the industry. So through that word of mouth and through just that kind of grassroots presence, we saw really healthy growth. And so there became a point, and I'll try to shorten this up, but essentially, I was dealing with probably 800 to 1,200 accounts all under my own roof. And I was like, dang, I need some help. Things are getting really busy. I'm working really long hours just to keep up with everyone. And I think the next stage is growing the company. And so that's where I took in more of a management role, started hiring other account managers, training them up. And we built a pretty healthy sales team. Most of us are car enthusiasts, which definitely helped with the role. But that process and the structure that we have around that was kind of just the way that I did things and seemed to work. So we ironed out that process a little bit further, helped get the rest of the staff on board with that, implemented some new systems like online ordering, which made everyone's life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Now we're not just, taking credit cards and processing orders. We can just take that time to build relationships. So that's kind of been the focus now, is definitely with a quality-based customer service approach, more consultative sales than, being aggressive with sales. And that seemed to work really well. The products speak for themselves. So if you guys are familiar with STEK, we have a good reputation. The quality of the materials are really good. If you guys aren't familiar, go, check out our website, talk to some local dealers, see what they think about it. If you want it for your car or you're interested to bring it in your shop, it's a good quality product, and I'll leave it at that. So that was really fun. But after 5 years doing that customer service and helping manage the sales team, I knew that the other need in the business was marketing, and that was my passion, and I like the creativity aspect of it. And that's what I originally went to Washington State University for. So I was able to kind of pitch to the owners here of, can I branch away from the sales director role and start a marketing team? And so they gave me the ropes to do that. We hired Casey and Nick. Casey's our lead content creator. He's brilliant behind the camera. He's also really, really good at editing. And then Nick has a really good mind for social media marketing, digital marketing. So he's our digital marketing manager. And so I kind of help facilitate those roles. I do a lot of the relationship building, sponsorship aspect of things now, event planning, logistics, and partnerships. And so it's been a really good multifaceted team, if you will. We all kind of lean on each other's strengths, and we've had a lot of fun over the last 2 years traveling around, building those relationships, trying to get a lot of stock content, OEM content that one supports the brand, but then supports our dealers offering the brand. So it's increases consumer awareness, and then also makes it easier for them to show what it is we're offering, so that they can help their customers make the best and most informed decision.
I love all of that. I'm curious. I want to back up. What were the things that you identified of the owners that were, because a lot of what, like I said before we started, I talked to Ivan LaCroix of DIY Detail, amongst other million things that he does yesterday. And a good bit of our conversation was this concept, and this is what I'll be talking about next week, is this concept of using your business to build your life, not giving up your life to build your business, right? Like, because it's two different things. So I'm curious, like, what it was that how you identified those things, and then what it was that you identified, and then also, did they implement the things that you suggested? That's the $64,000 question, as I used to say. So
yeah, absolutely. In some regards, yeah, and it took them a while to do so, but I think they did take some of what I recommended, as far as like, hey, you should have essentially a book of operations, order of operations for procedures that you do, starting in the wash bay where we wash in cars, so you get the same result every time. But then how are we training people? What are the processes that run the business day to day? And they have been able to implement those. They've been able to hire trustworthy managers and promote within to allow those businesses, or detail shop in particular, to continue thriving, even though they're now more hands off. And so it's probably in the last 3 to 5 years that they've slowly been stepping away from being in the day-to-day business at their detail shop, allowing that to operate under that order of operations, or that book of operations that I kind of recommended they build and showed them some examples of. So now they have more time to spend on STEK, as well as other endeavors that they're pursuing. So I would say that, it took a little while. It wasn't like overnight, all of us do this run, but they slowly were able to find that balance so that they can get back to their life and personal goals.
I love that. Yeah. SOPs, standard operating procedures, should be in every business. We've talked about it a ton on this podcast, and it's something that I think a lot of people fail at, myself included. I'm trying to offload a ton to my executive assistant, including email and calendar and task lists. And Like I love waking up to 4 emails that I have to take action on instead of 134 in the morning because she's a little, she's 12 hours ahead of me.
Mhm.
But I need to develop these SOPs, and I'm helping her do the same thing for my business, which is, they can exist in every business. So I think that's super important and great way to identify that. When I talk to you, a lot of people that I am surrounded with, and even on this podcast and all that, tend to be entrepreneurial, small business. But and which myself included, I've been that way for about 30 years. But before that, I was in the corporate world. Like I had a quote unquote real job. But what I found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that you seem to be the kind of guy where I have always said, there are people that choose to work for a larger organization, but they do so with an entrepreneurial mindset. Right. And so can you just talk about that? I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that, how you think that gets manifested in your day to day, and how, like, the advantages and disadvantages of that.
Yeah.
Of working for a big company instead of working for your quote unquote working for yourself. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in automotive in particular, there's a huge variety of formal education. A lot of people have it, a lot of people don't. And it seems like multiple people can be successful no matter what category that you're in. And so I think the value is being able to take this bigger picture understanding of how business operates and apply that to small applications like startup companies. I think it builds a more repetitive process. It helps build ultimately a stronger foundation so that it can scale and grow a little bit quicker, but also more securely in terms of the relationships and the consistency that the clients are getting. I've also found it really fun to be able to be in a startup company where what you're doing is more impactful than what you might be doing at a big corporation. And so, from a personal standpoint, it can be more rewarding. And I was actually just talking to my girlfriend about this last night, but working hard at putting yourself in the shoes of the owners. If this was my company, what would I do? What are the things that we need to achieve or accomplish to get to that next step of growth and security or whatever that may be that our goals are around? And so by treating it like it is something I have ownership under and over, it helps me kind of propel forward the ideas that I believe are best for the company. I'm acting in the company's best interest, but I also know inherently that that's in my best interest. If they grow, there's opportunities for me to grow with it. And so it kind of goes back to that, work for life or live your life and, work.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's kind of that balance again of, well, I want this company to be as successful as possible. And it's cool to be in this environment where, we're a medium, small business, not yet big, but we're no longer small either. And it's cool to have that impact, be able to see it from being employee number 2 to where we're at now with, over 25 folks on board in just the Washington office here. And so, again, I think it was definitely helpful from my experience. I don't think it's detrimental or absolutely mandatory, but it helped pave the way forward. And I always tie back to that formal education to kind of help me make the best judgments possible on projects and what to focus on.
Yeah, that's when I was younger, my corporate days, I worked for a startup, and this was I'm quite a bit older than you, but back in the .com days, right? Like VC money was flowing like milk and honey, and we grew a company from I was number 22, and we grew it to about 300, and people were just throwing $10 million a year at us. Just here, you do what? Oh yeah, that's fine. Here's a check, right?
Yeah.
But that growth and that excitement is super cool to be able to do that. And I kind of took a similar path as you, where I kind of, saw a need, floated around, did some different things, traveled way too much when I was younger. I actually travel more now too, which is dumb, but would not would not recommend. But one thing I want to point out, and I think this is a good lesson for small businesses that are listening to this, is that you pointed out very precisely that you take ownership in the company as an employee, right? Like you are an employee. There's benefits to doing that, but you not only are able to take ownerships, but the people that actually own the company have empowered you to do so and to feel that way. I think so many times that people who are, have employees, they're kind of like, hey, just do your tasks and go home and all that. They're not empowered. They don't really have ownership or buy-in of the company or anything like that. Is that kind of what you see? And what's a trajectory now? Like where do you go from here as a as a company and as an employee of the company?
Yeah, very good question. I think that can be a limiting factor if you're not empowering your employees to take ownership. It kind of goes back to that micromanagement of like almost anyone you talk to probably doesn't like being micromanaged. So put trust in those employees. If you've done your job as a manager or owner to train them, set expectations, also let them know, is there a ceiling and what else can you keep your mind on? Those are things that you can kind of sprinkle on, and I find with that, like motivation and the way that you interact with your staff is really important to kind of set that culture in the company of, I have a good idea, I think I want to present it, versus I'm scared to present it. And keeping it open platform so that you can advocate for yourself and what you believe is best for the company definitely helps individuals feel more important in the company. And I think that sense of value is really important for longevity and retention. And as we all know, retention is everything from a sales standpoint, as much as it is even like internally. If you can retain your employees, you're going to have a better operating business than if your turnover is really high. So I think there's a fine balance to strike there, but hiring the right people is super important. And I think we even have talked about this previously, but hiring on character is one of the most important things. You can always train the skills, the technical side of things, the knowledge, but the character of the individual is something that they're inherently going to bring in, and that's how they're raised and what their nature versus nurture is as well. So I think that's definitely impactful. As far as next steps, I think really continuing to, from a marketing standpoint, still a pretty young team. We have, this will be our second kind of full year under our belt, and we've learned a lot. We're also pursuing marketing in ways that I feel is pretty aggressive, trying to get into new markets and do a kind of influencer marketing that explains the viewer that our products are useful and shows them that they're useful, instead of just having like a technical, scientific, here's a tech talk on it. Let me just show it to you on an off-roading truck or on a sprint car, which is off-road racing again.
Right.
Dealing with even some drifters, and it's like, no, not every drifter is going to be able to afford PPF. It's a pretty young demographic out there. But
they gotta buy tires, man. That's
exactly.
that is leave a lot in the budget.
But it's a really good use case of like, hey, if you're an enthusiast, you're going to enjoy watching these cars do what they're made to do.
Yeah.
At the same time, see where this product is truly valuable there. So I was just talking to a drifter that we sponsored, Stuart Wilson. He has a C6 that's totally wrapped in our forged carbon. It looks wicked. He was at an event this weekend. He got second place at. They were doing some final laps at the end of the day, and he bumped into his buddy, and his buddy's car got like, pretty mangled. His car with PPF didn't. He was actually able to use like paint remover lacquer and just wipe off the vast majority of it. A couple sections he's going to need to replace a little bit of the PPF, but that's a great use case.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's great content too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, send me some videos, but the car's in better shape for it. So kind of getting creative. If we know who the market is, guys like ourselves or girls like ourselves who are into cars and driving them, it's been a really fun way to pursue that marketing. So we want to continue developing that, building more relationships with automotive influencers. We're working with Adam LZ this year, which is obviously a big one, and we have a couple other in the pipeline. And so staying aggressive and just trying to be as creative as possible, finding that balance of, what events are worthwhile versus what digital kind of efforts we want to put in, and finding where should that budget be spent and what return are we getting on those dollars. And so that's kind of my immediate focus on the marketing space. I think from a company, we do have a lot of new products in development. We've been kind of slow to release new things the last couple of years, but we're going to have a whole lot of new things to release here in the next couple of years. So, all good things take time. The R&D has been working really hard to develop new Dino Series colors, which is like our top of the line. So we'll have a new like orange on display at SEMA this year, but we're also updating pretty much all the existing dyno colors into matte finishes. So over the next 6-12 months, we're going to see all those colors come out in a matte finish as well as a gloss. And we have a new line of film called Force Series, which is a 5-year film. It's a little bit lower price and a little bit more competitive with a lot of the other color change PPFs out there. We're going to have over 100 colors coming out in that probably over the next, again, year, 2 years. So that's just the PPF side of things. We have windshield film that we're working on, and we'll be teasing about a little bit at SEMA next week, along with ceramic coating that's coming out really soon. We've been back and forth, multiple coatings in, and like, this is the one. This is as good as they get, essentially. So, a lot of new things that we're going to continue to cook. And I think with that product development, hopefully we see more, brand awareness from the marketing side and more demand for the variety of products that we're offering.
I love it. Yeah, you can send me some of that windshield film. Here in Montana, I go through like 3 a year.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Different places have different uses, but I'm just kidding. But I want to ask you a couple things. First of all, what is your network strategy for expanding that network into higher influence people? So like we've found, because I've kind of been down this road and I've found myself in rooms that I probably had no business being in with people I had no business hanging around. That was my original thought. Now I know I totally belong here. This is great. But like, that's where we talk about like this little network part, this ties in with this, and then this person knows this person. What's your strategy there? And can you relate that to like doing that in your own community too? I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that, since this is something, obviously, if you're doing Adam LZ and some of these guys, you're not just, because I think a lot of people will be like, oh, we're just throwing money at these guys, right? There is a financial component and sponsorship and all that, but like most of these guys at that level don't just work on write me a check, right? So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really fun, and every relationship's a little bit different. I think it's a good mix between existing connections that we have within our network. Nick, our digital marketing manager, had a connection to Adam LZ, and so we were able to get that direct line of communication with him, and start that conversation going back and forth. So there's a financial aspect there. There's also what's in it for us. So this is where that crossover between personal and professional is coming up. We sponsored Adam LZ's rally car. Adam's known as a drifter, but he's been really interested in getting into rally for years. And we were able to help him make that opportunity happen by being the title sponsor for his rally build. And so, one, it's a great looking car and it has a big STEK on the side of it. And that's, great for us. It also has a full body in our like extra thick dynamite paint protection film. And so he's out there, he's showing the best use case possible of, I'm literally driving on gravel, not just getting some gravel kicked up on my car, and seeing how it holds up, how it protects the wrap underneath, the livery, and as well as the paint that he had freshly redone at his compound. So that's been a fun one. And we just got back from an event with him in Texas, actually, where he got first place. Turns out he's very good at driving in the rally world as well as he is in drifting. So
did you offer your own like personal expertise and information there? I'm curious because a lot of times that's what I try to do. First of all, it's fun to do that, but also it helps to foster those relationships. Is like, hey, I'm good at this. Let me is he interested in, does that relationship happen in that way too?
Yeah, a little bit. He also has been working with Dave, who owns Rally Ready, which is a rally school out in Austin, Texas. And so Dave was a really good technical resource from him as far as when he was shopping for cars and helping him refresh the car that he did end up purchasing. And so between the two of us, we're definitely pushing to get him to stage, which is like the next big step. He's been doing rally sprints, which are shorter events. And so Dave and I, we were just talking this weekend. We're like, that's definitely our goal. It's good for the sport, but it's also great for both of our brands who have supported him. So there's definitely that curating and just understanding everything that goes into it. Let them know that, hey, I'm available as a resource. It's also helpful for building those relationships with both Rally Ready and Adam, of being like, hey, we are in this world as well. Like, we're not just, pushing paper down here. We care about cars. We're, actually, probably ridiculously obsessed with them at some level and irresponsibly so. And so that helps us connect them like, oh, we have that same problem, So ultimately, we get along at that level, knowing that we're all in it for the same reasons, which is we love the sport, we love driving. And so that one, I think, definitely naturally kind of caters to those passions that I have in other experience. A lot of our other team are into drifting, and so working with Nate Chin, we've worked a little bit with Adam on his drift car, but also Stuart Wilson. Those are the three main drifters we've worked with this year. Everyone on our staff really enjoys watching it, and we know that, hey, even though these 18 to 25-year-olds probably can't afford paint protection film yet, they're going to age up and hopefully, increase their income. And at someday when they buy a new car, the first brand they're going to think of is STEK. And so that's the other challenge of marketing, is it is a long-term game. And that's really the purpose of a lot of these relationships. Also dealing with a gal named New. She's out of Hawaii, and Hawaii's been kind of a slow growing market for us. So one, she has a really good like national reach, not just there on the island, but obviously a lot of attention on the island too. So working with her on a Cybertruck and what will be her G80 once we get back in the body shop. That was kind of more, sometimes they approach us. And so that was a case where they reached out, hey, I saw your film. I really like what you guys are offering. Wondering if we can work out a sponsorship. And so that was pretty much us just helping cover material, a little bit of the labor there. and trade with a shop that's already using our film makes it a lot easier. So it can goes both ways. Sometimes we're aggressive. We approach them. Other times they're approaching us and asking, for a partnership. We go back and forth, find out what makes the most sense.
Hey, you know that little thing on your phone when you search and you say business near me? Well, people aren't finding you when they search for ceramic coating near me, detailing near me, tint shop near me, PPF shop near me. They're not finding you as well as they should, or they're not finding you in the areas that you'd like to. Detailer's Roadmap has a solution. I want to introduce our new Google Business and Maps Accelerator. We have got this great new program that not only gives you an opportunity to do some search engine optimization, SEO, but in a very specific way that is designed to be map friendly, Google business friendly, and in order to get you more leads in areas that you're currently in and areas that you also want to target that may be slightly out of your own area. So go to detailersroadmap.com, use that little schedule a demo button at the top, and tell them in that form that you want to do the Google Business and Maps Accelerator program. Take a look at that. It's very cost effective and a very entry level price, and it's awesome. I like that a lot. The one thing that I've noticed being in the automotive world for a few decades now is that most automotive, you don't typically see, I mean, they're out there, but you don't typically see what you would call like a prima donna type attitude in the automotive space. Like I've never really encountered that. Most people are just like, hey, my job is just different than yours or at a different level than yours. But at the end of the day, we love cars and we love different parts of an automotive hobby. I'm an old school hot ride guy, but I don't, if you want a cambered out, Japanese car, good on you. Like that's cool that you put the time and effort into that. But then we have that bond where I can talk to them about their car. They can talk to them about my cars. And I think the same thing there is what you're talking about. You're really just a bunch of car people that happen to have, we all want to help each other. We had Asian from Farm Truck and Asian in the booth when I worked with G-Technic in 2019 with his car. And I remember like after that, he was like, anything I can do to serve G-Technic, I will. Right. Like, it's not like, hey, can you pay me to go to this event? Can you pay me to go to this event? Can you pay me to go to this event? It was really just like, I want to do everything I can to help their brand, and they want to do everything they can to help our brand. And I think that's something that is relatively rare in the automotive space.
Yeah. It's definitely amazing when you can find those true, authentic ambassadors for the brand. They believe in what you're doing. And there's definitely some partners like Throttle we've worked with quite a bit this year. And they tend to always go above and beyond what we're asking. And all they want is, hey, we need help on the material. The shop that does the installs helps them on the labor. And it ends up being like, hey, here's photo sets, here's videos. We're shouting you out on our YouTube, on our social media. If there's events, there's opportunities to invite them or bring out some of those cars that we've worked on. And so it's definitely awesome when you can find partners like that. Some folks at the higher level will be like, okay, I have a very busy schedule, so it's out of an inconvenience for me to be out there. But if you can make it worth my time, then absolutely I'll make it happen.
Right.
So that's pretty common. But I think automotive in general, to your point, we're all trying to help each other. And, we all somewhat come from a blue collar background where, we at one point have been grinding ourselves and recognize what it takes to get the car to that level or for what their goals are and what they need to do to achieve them. And we're happy to do whatever we can to help. And so oftentimes it comes full circle, and those are the best arrangements when they can.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was just thinking that one of the big challenge with marketing like this is it's, like pay-per-click advertising, right? Like I can go on right now and tell you what my ROAS has been for the last 7 days on a particular ad, and I can decide whether I'm going to increase budget, change creative, whatever. When you're talking about this relationship stuff and this brand identity and brand loyalty and all that, like that's a pretty big challenge to try to measure it. We did some TV stuff with G-Technic, and that's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, it's not like I get a click that buys this film that then I know that pays for this event, right?
Yeah, and that's a unique challenge, especially for us, because we do only sell business to business. And so there's not a retail website that, say end users can go to and click. So we don't get those, conversion clicks or affiliate links that we are seeing direct traffic through typically. And so that's been a challenge for me to kind of present to the ownership team here and be like, hey, our dollars are worth it.
Can I have 40 grand, please? I promise it'll be worth it.
Yeah. And the truth is you won't be able to track all of that. And so it goes back to trusting who you've hired, making sure that, within reason, we're making meaningful agreements, partnerships, and that we're doing everything we can to get the recognition out of that. And so it's definitely a challenge in the marketing space. I think the direct advertising to website traffic is the easier stuff to do. Our Google ad campaigns, our Instagram and Facebook campaigns, we can see how many clicks we're getting. We can see the traffic increase or decrease. You can track it. If Adam LZ is posting something about STEK, we see a direct correlation and increase of followers and engagement for that day or that week. And so there's cases like that are very helpful, but then there's a lot of the other relationships we have where it's a lot more indirect. And so that goes back to just have some faith, be patient and trust that this kind of ties into what's going on in the industry right now is just trust that what you're doing today will help you tomorrow or next week, or in our case, maybe next year. Because the customer that you're reaching might not be a customer yet. It's just a lead and that might be a little bit cold. But if you keep up with that consistent work, I really do believe that will come again full circle, and someday you have that opportunity to acquire them as a client. And so with marketing, it's very much so have that faith, be patient, but also stay consistent. Like be diligent. Don't wait for opportunities to like slow down. I think I saw Chris post something today. He's like, stay hungry for it. Just like we saw at the start of the pandemic, those folks that kind of took a step back, weren't keeping their doors open and saw it as an opportunity to take a vacation or take a break. Nothing wrong with that, but a lot of them had a hard time coming back. Whereas even for us, for instance, we, within reason, kept our doors open, continued shipping material, stayed, on the marketing front, sharing content, and it was a very good time of growth for us. And a lot of other shops in the industry saw really good growth through that. And so as we go into this election and we don't really know what next year or the next 2 or 4 years is going to look like yet, even though there's some uncertainty there, stay faithful and be patient with it. And, stay proactive as possible. Don't wait for opportunities to come, make those opportunities. And I think with what we're doing with marketing, we'll pay off a year or two from now. We're not going to see that direct return, but we're in that same mindset of be patient and have faith. And I think it'll come full circle.
What does that customer nurture strategy look like when you're trying to get someone to, like you had said before, these are the 18 to 25-year-olds that probably can't afford film yet. So that builds this brand loyalty and all that. But in a given shop, I know that you're walking these guys through that, guys and gals who own these shops. What does that nurture program look like? Like, what are the steps to get them into that? Because, PPF's not cheap. Obviously you have, full front or whatever you want to do, right, to do that in. I'm just curious what that looks like for a PPF shop or a shop that actually does offer PPF to nurture those along the way from that cold lead into a customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to kind of what I found successful as sales here for STEK was be a source for information, be the expert in your area. And when people have questions, they'll reach out. They might see your content and not reach out, but they're going to, kind of keep in mind, oh, this seemed like a really good post. I'm going to save it. And, those silent saves, if you will, you're like, where are those going? Well, someday someone might be interested again. They're like, okay, I'm ready. I got my new car. And they're going to go look for that post that they saved and be like, all right, these guys really knew what they were talking about. Let me start by calling them first. And so it kind of goes back to being consistent, but be that source of knowledge for your market. Provide videos, photos, and blogs, even FAQs that help them find the information they're looking for when they're deciding how they want to purchase whatever that service or product is. And by being that expert, I think it builds a lot of trust and accountability. And usually those experts are not the most, they're more highly priced. They're not the cheapest guys. They're not the ones price racing to the bottom. They spend time because they know that they're investing not only in the quality of the craftsmanship to learn and train and get better, they also spend time sharing that education. And so that, I think, sets a really good, strong, again, base and foundation for why you should choose me, maybe not this year, but next year, or whenever, you become that PPF client. And so that's really the simplest way to put it, is just be there, show people that you know what you're doing, you know how you're doing it, and you know what you're talking about. And I always encourage our shops. We kind of have this business presentation for the end of any of our training classes, which is do consultative sales. Ask your clients more questions than they're asking you, and learn what it is they're trying to accomplish. Have you had PPF before? How long are you going to keep your car? How do you wash your car? And learn if they're a good client for PPF. And then based on how they respond to those questions, you have a lot better understanding of what they need. And selling them what they need is always going to be better than selling them what you want. It might not be the highest price thing. If it's a lease, I'm going to not PPF it. I'm just going to ceramic coat it. It'll be easier to keep clean, look good for the next couple of years. And I'm going to trade it in and get something else. So that builds a trusting relationship where that customer keeps coming back. They're like, oh, this guy didn't try to push things on me I didn't need, or this girl. And I can trust this business, whether it's the front of house or the owner doing the sales or a salesperson. That, again, consultative approach, asking lots of questions, doing that discovery before making recommendations is really impactful. A lot of other people will just spew out the number that you're asking about, whereas the ones that I think have a really good opportunity to close on deals are the ones that ask questions. They're like, why did no one else ask me how I'm going to drive my car or what my washing maintenance looks like? So those small things can make a big difference.
Yeah, and that's what talking back, bringing SOPs back, right? You should really have an SOP for your sales process also, because that's how you define that. But I always say that people's favorite subject is them, right? Yeah. There's a reason social media is so successful. It's because people love to talk about themselves. So that's a big part of, these customer conversation is you need to ask them as many questions as you can to get them talking about themselves. And then you can infer some of the stuff, and then you can also ask directly, because someone may, and I love that you guys offer kind of good, better, best levels. And, because not every customer out there, A, can afford it, but B, more importantly, needs to put the highest level of PPF on their car and do full PPF wrap and all that stuff. Maybe they're only going to keep it for a couple of years. And, that could lead to a ceramic coating, or it could lead to say, hey, look, you want your car pink and it's now black, this is a great way to do it. And it's going to be, it's not going to cost you a ton of money in order to do that. I really like that. I want to bring out something so you and I tried to connect with you at WFCT. But I loved your response, and I want you to talk about this. And if you can, tie it back into these kind of choices for small businesses too, in some of these shops, because your answer was, we've chosen not to. And first of all, I've got like 5 episodes in a row from WFCT. So it's a window film conference. If you're not familiar with that, go look that up. But it is a trade show for people that do what STEK does, right? Like and so you had said, we've chosen not to go because we have other priorities and things that we want to spend. Essentially, it's a marketing show, right? Those are marketing dollars that you've chosen, and flying all your crap all the way across the country to Orlando and putting everybody up and all that. It's no small investment. So can you just talk about that and that thought process, and then in particular, how shops can make those kind of decisions for themselves also? Not every shop is going to go to Orlando to do a trade show and spend 15, 20 grand or whatever, but they may be looking at spending 5 grand on something, and they might want to spend it on something else.
Yeah. We've had weekends where we have 3 events going on the same weekend. Different staff is going all over the country. I'm shipping different, tins and foods and stuff like that all over. And it's a lot to manage, but it also can come at a high cost. We found that there's some events out there that have really good reach, really good return, and don't come at a high cost. They're also usually simpler to set up for, and easier ultimately for us to make it out to. And so, for example, we also have the Canadian market that we distribute for, and there's a Yorkville Exotic Show. The price for the show is extremely reasonable. It's probably in the 5,000 range, and there is over 100,000 people that come out on the single.
Holy crap, that is a good value.
Yeah, and go through. And so it's kind of like Exotics on Broadway is in Car Week, where people are shoulder to shoulder the whole day. Your swag is usually out by early afternoon. And from that point on, you just have good conversations. And so through experiencing more events, we can kind of pull and choose, okay, what was worth it, what's not. But we also wanted to focus a lot this year on more direct, customer relationships. And so where we could spend that staff and money and time to go out to, say, WFCT, there's also an opportunity for us to take that time, money, or employee and have them go do door-to-door shop visits.
Mhm.
And a lot of times for us, that door-to-door is going to be better return on our investment. We have a chance to sit down one-on-one where people aren't having 100 conversations with other companies that weekend. And similarly, there's also cars and coffee that a lot of our shops put on. We love coming out to those, showing our support, flying a rep out if we can, maybe even helping with some film giveaway. So that could be a headlight film package or it could be a window tint package. And so by helping and catering some of that spend to more direct one-on-one support, we find that curates a little bit of a stronger relationship. We're focused on retention a little bit more this year than we are on growth. And so we have a healthy number of installers. We all know that there's a saturation argument for any distributor of anything of like, oh, well, this guy down the street's using it now and it's, frustrating. We don't have super strict requirements. We don't have a territory as far as, who we will or won't sell to. You have to have a business license, have to be certified for the service, either through our training class or another major brand that will recognize. We do require proof of it. But if you meet those check boxes, then we'll sell to you. And so the best thing we can do.
I love that, by the way. Let me just say not that you need my approval, but I love that idea. Sell to anybody that wants to buy it. Like that's a good, I like that model.
Yeah. It makes sense for business, right? We're not in a nonprofit here. We're a for-profit company.
Right.
We do want to see that growth. We also recognize that our best opportunities to maintain good growth is to make sure our clients keep coming back. They're happy with the service that we're offering. We're also helping them sell more film. And so a lot of times that's that face-to-face conversation. We're going out, we're seeing what the operation's like in the shop. We take you out to dinner afterwards. We can have a conversation about, have you tried this? How is that going? And hopefully, I've done a decent job at training the sales staff, and now Daniel taking over and Howard are doing a good job of training the rest of the staff there to have that business education so that we can help those shops ask the difficult questions and rethink the way that they're doing things if there's opportunity for improvement. And so, again, we're just saying more focus on kind of that getting shops door-to-door kind of shop visits done more than doing a ton of events. We went really, really hard in the event category last year. I think I planned over probably 40 events,
Wow.
which, if you guys know, there's 52 weeks in a year. So that means almost every other week, if not more, events are going on constantly. One is a big headache, just to be honest. That's, I can event plan, but it's not my passion. But two is also expensive. To your point, shipping freight across the country and getting it picked up here to go there for the next weekend and all that kind of stuff is a lot.
Freeman charges you through the wazoo, as you're about to find out next week at SEMA.
Yeah, SEMA's always the price one, but that show's big enough and it has enough of the industry going that it's worth it. We're totally open to doing more in industry conferences too. It's just kind of in terms of priorities this year, that wasn't at the top. We had other things going on that same weekend, other events or trips for our representatives that are already planned. And so we're moving forward, but we are going to MTE Expo in January down in Orlando. So we're totally open to those shows. It's just not everyone is going to be able to get scheduled in.
Yeah, and I'm not disparaging anyone going to any show, but the point I wanted to make, because it struck me as that's cool. That's a really good decision. And I had a discussion with someone yesterday, actually in this morning, about SEMA. They just had a new baby, and so they normally have a booth at SEMA, and they're not going this year because they have a new baby. And he was like, yeah, it's a bad year for me. I'm like, dude, that sounds like the best reason to not go to SEMA. And he was saying that, yeah, we're going to use that money for XYZ or whatever. And I said, well, it'll be a great opportunity for you to really evaluate that strategy to determine whether or not SEMA is the right approach for you. And in my opinion, it's not necessarily the right approach for everybody. And over the years, it has kind of changed a little bit. But if you know your numbers and you know the ROI on some of those things, whether it's intangible or actually tangible, and that is part of the discussion. But I think a lot of large businesses and small businesses make decisions based on this FOMO thing, right? Well, everybody else is going to be in Orlando, so I have to go spend 15 grand to go there. Yeah. Not necessarily or Las Vegas or wherever it is, right? Being strategic makes a lot of difference in where you put your marketing dollars, because they're finite, both for a small business and for a medium-sized business like STEK.
Yeah. I would to kind of wrap that conversation up too, I would say as a shop owner, I would be focused on my own business and my own market first and foremost. If things are going super smooth, you have work booked out, your staff knows what to do, then sure, spend that money to not make money that week, right? Which is where the 15 number can come from. Not only we're not, working at our shop, so we're not making money, we're out in Vegas and where it's really easy to spend a lot of money. So that's a really hard decision to make, and it is an investment on time and money. But if there's a local Cars and Coffee that you guys can be a part of, or a Porsche tech session that you want to go spend the weekend, sponsoring, might cost some money, might cost some time, but that is your demographic as a shop. Unless you're a franchise, you want to be focused on that local market. And that's where I would set my priority until things are rock and roll and totally smooth. You have a process, you have, work scheduled in, then focus on that local market. Take the time to go to those local events. They're going to be a lower cost of time and money, and you're going to get a lot more direct return. SEMA is great as a distributor of a brand or product, but as an installer, if it's not the right year for you to go, then don't feel bad about that. Focus on the business, save that money, invest it in advertising or something else that you can do to help your business grow back home. So focus on that local market first and foremost, find that success, do those local shows, and don't overthink, not making it to the trade shows.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I appreciate you making that, because it's that FOMO of not going, or like this is like my 17th year at SEMA. So the new wore off a little bit. Don't tell, I'm friends with Mike Spagnolia, the president, so don't tell him I said that. But like it's something that you should do maybe once, like as a goal, and save up for it. But to your point, if your business is not at a place where you can just drop, because it's like, even as an individual, it's easy to drop $3,000 going out for that trip, right? Like that's probably a fairly, average number for a lot of people. And whether you gamble or not, I don't. But like it's an expensive, like trips are expensive. So I love the point that you should probably just spend that money locally, going to Cars and Coffee, doing some sponsorships, and actually grow your business. And one goal would be to say, okay, well, if I make $5,000 out of these Cars and Coffee events, and I'll put that in a fund and I'll use that to go to SEMA next year, or whatever that is. All right. So speaking of SEMA, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm actually going to drop this the Tuesday of SEMA, which is the first day of SEMA. So I'll go ahead and drop that then, because I can do that because I'm the host and, I get to decide. So what are we expecting to see? Last year, you showed me some cool glow in the dark stuff. You had that. I was telling my wife last night, we were sitting in the hot tub. She's had 5 vehicles that she's worked on in SEMA. And the first year we were in SEMA, she wrecked her Jeep in a navigation rally, which is not a speed rally like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I begged the guys to let me put it in like that, because I just thought it would be super interesting and super cool. I think I told you this last year when you had that Porsche. You had a Porsche, right? Porsche rally car that had been out to probably Johnson Valley or something and was covered in silt and all that crap that you have to drive through. So like I was telling her, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting ready to interview Michael again, and he was the one that had that car, because I had sent her some pictures and stuff. But what do you guys have coming out? What if we're at the show, what do we look for? And if we're not at the show, what do we want to reach out to our dealership about, and some of those kind of things?
Yeah. So the first color that we'll be showcasing, we've shared a little bit of teaser so far, but is the new Dino Orange. So we have a very over the top custom built supercar, if you will, that will be sporting the full body in the Dino Orange PPF. So if you want to see the newest color from us, that guy will be on a full vehicle. We also have an extremely custom Buick Skylark. And so this guy is on Instagram as the Bag Buick, I believe, as his handle.
What year is it?
It's a 1965
that's a good
Buick Skylark. And so this thing's a boat. It's huge.
Oh, yeah.
But they've done a lot of work to it, and it's a lot faster than it was when it came out of the factory. It also has a lot more body work and modification going on. And these guys actually drive the car. They drive it all over the place. He said, 4 to 5 days a week, we're actually driving it. And so that car has a full body in our Dyno Black Matte PPF, has some accents in our Dyno Black Gloss, and then also our high gloss carbon fiber. And that thing's just like, as far as I know, there's a whole battle of the builders out there.
Yeah.
That thing, I think it would be a top contender. Like, this is extremely custom, extremely well done, old school, cool kind of vehicle. And so
that's right up my alley. I'm definitely coming to look at that thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, come check it out. I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen a lot of content with it, and I'm excited to pull up next Monday and see how that turns out. So with that in mind, there will be a third car that we'll be doing some more live demos on. It's going to be a Faraday, which is a fairly new EV. It's like a $300,000 EV, which is kind of crazy. But that's going to be sporting some of our new films, in development films that I can't quite talk about yet. We'll reveal it next week. But if you want to see some of the newest colors, some of the newest finishes from us, we'll be playing with those on the fair day. Then we also had that 4 series I talked about with over 100 colors coming out in the next year and two. We have, I think, 120, 140 of those examples of colors that we'll have on display. So it'll be a big wall dedicated to that 4 series. Last thing will be the windshield film. Dino Top is our new windshield film. So that will be installed on the fair day as well. If you want to see it, kind of look at the clarity, all that.
Are you going to throw a 20-pound ball bearing at it like Elon Musk, or
I don't think so. Haven't been in the plans
probably
yet.
not on a $300,000 vehicle. That also didn't work out so well for Elon, but
and the windshield's probably hard to find, all that stuff. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on in the booth. Definitely some cool live demos. We'll be demoing window tint throughout the whole week too. So if you are a tinter and you want to try tinting, swing by the booth. You'll have a chance to get hands on with the film. And then we also have a few of our black label shops, which is kind of our premier hand-picked installers. We only had 11, 12 that joined this year. We'll roll out invitations shortly after SEMA for 25. But we have a few of these guys helping us out in a booth in Central Hall. They'll do a live demo on a beautiful GTR R34. So old school Skyline there, but they're going to do a full front and plus some bits probably. So we'll be doing some live demos in the Central Hall where we are not, and then West Hall's where the STEK booth is. And then we have about 10 to 12 other cars that have STEK all throughout the show. So keep an eye out for those. We're going to make kind of a video just, going around and showing off all the other STEK cars there.
I'll have to peel Chris away from the Skyline. So he's, I know he's been talking about the one that I think is on the way. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I did anyway.
Sure, yeah. Is that the
but yeah, so if you guys are going to shoot content constantly, I'm sure. So if we can't be at the show, people that aren't at the show, they would go follow you guys. Where do they find the content in order to see what you guys are doing?
Yeah, 2 best places. If you want the really in-depth videos, would be our YouTube, just STEK USA. And then similar, if you just want something quick snippet, check us out on social, which would be at STEK USA.
And are you guys uploading every day, kind of doing that? I know a lot of times that content creation is like, yeah, so you got until like 9:30 p.m. to get all our content out. That's what we shot content last year. And that was, it's like, all right, Mike, go back to the Airbnb. You need to have the content edited and out by this evening. So is that are you guys releasing every day?
Yeah. We'll have some releasing most days. I don't think it'll be absolutely every single day. We'll keep kind of like the full edits of it, probably the following week. But we'll definitely get out on social. A lot of content. Our story will be full all day long.
Nice. Well, I don't have a video guy this year, but I'm just going to walk around and do selfie style stuff. So I'll come by the booth and you can show me the Skyline or the Skylark and the other vehicles that you guys have out there. So, yeah. Michael, this has been great, man. I appreciate you coming back, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. And I hope you guys have a great show. And 2025 sounds like it's going to rock. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, we're excited to get after it. But thanks so much for having me on, Kevin. I look forward to seeing you guys out there. And if anyone does have questions, just find us at stek-usa.com. We're always happy to help.
That's awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.